Captain Ju Park stood on the bridge of the HSV Audacity, watching the stars streak by through the main viewport. The small exploration vessel hummed with the quiet efficiency of Earth's best technology. They had been mapping the outer reaches of the solar system for 3 weeks, and the crew was settling into a comfortable routine. "Captain, I'm picking up unusual energy readings," said Hyun-Ki Lee, leaning forward at his console. His fingers danced across the holographic display, bringing up complex data patterns. "It's not matching anything in our database." Ju-woo moved closer, studying the readings. "Location: about 20,000 kilometers off our starboard bow. It's fluctuating." Lieutenant Minji Kim joined them, her brow furrowed. "That pattern looks almost like a gravitational anomaly, but it's too structured." Ju-woo considered their options. The Audacity was designed for exploration. Finding the unknown was literally their mission. "Adjust course. Let's take a closer look." The ship changed direction, engines humming as they approached the strange phenomenon. Gradually, a shimmer became visible against the blackness of space, like heat rising from pavement on a summer day. "Is that what I think it is?" Minjae whispered. Hyun-Ki's eyes widened. "If you're thinking wormhole, then yes. But it's stable. That should be impossible." Ju-woo was about to order them to maintain distance when the ship lurched forward. The shimmer expanded, surrounding the viewport. "We're caught in a gravitational pull," Hyun-Ki shouted. "Full reverse thrust," Ju-woo ordered, gripping her chair as the ship shuddered. The engines screamed in protest, but the Audacity continued its inexorable slide toward the rippling distortion. The stars around them stretched into lines, and for a moment, Ju-woo felt like her body was being pulled in 1,000 directions at once. Then, silence. The bridge lights flickered back to full power. Outside the viewport was a completely different starfield. "Status report," Ju-woo demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. "All systems operational," Minja responded after a quick check. "But Captain, we're not where we were. Stellar configurations don't match anything in our charts." Before Ju-woo could respond, Hyun-Ki called out, "Multiple vessels approaching. Big ones." On the viewport, 3 massive ships appeared. They were unlike anything humans had designed, organic-looking, with sweeping curves and pulsing lights along their hulls. "They're hailing us," said Communications Officer Do-Yim Kang. "The signal format is strange, but our system is adapting." "Put it through," Ju-woo ordered. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in an unfamiliar language. The ship's computer worked furiously to translate. "Unknown vessel, you have illegally entered Viridian territorial space. Power down your engines and prepare to be escorted to Outpost Zenith 7. Ju-woo exchanged glances with her officers. First contact. This wasn't how any of them had imagined it happening. "This is Captain Ju Park of the human science vessel Audacity. We entered your space by accident through what appears to be a wormhole. We come in peace and will comply with your instructions." There was a long pause. "Human vessel, your compliance is noted. Follow our lead ship precisely." The journey to Outpost Zenith 7 took 3 hours, during which the crew tried to contain their excitement and anxiety. They were finally going to meet aliens, actual, intelligent extraterrestrial life. The outpost itself was a sprawling structure orbiting a small blue-green moon. The Audacity was directed to a docking bay that could have held 20 ships its size. "They build big," Minji observed as they glided into the cavernous space. After docking, they were met by a delegation of what the crew would later learn were Viridians. Tall, slender beings with iridescent skin and 4 arms. Their faces featured large, multifaceted eyes and no visible mouth. "Greetings," came a mechanically translated voice from a device one of them carried. "I am Border Authority Coordinator Thelian. You will follow proper entrance protocols." The proper entrance protocols turned out to be mind-numbingly tedious. The humans were led to a vast chamber filled with various alien species, all waiting in different queues. Their Viridian escort directed them to a line marked with symbols they couldn't understand. This is the human-identified species processing queue, Thelian explained. Please wait until your designation number is called. 4 hours later. This is ridiculous, Humke muttered, scrolling through data on his portable tablet. I've mapped their entire network structure while sitting here. Their security is at least a century behind ours. Juwu gave him a warning look. Let's not hack the aliens on day one, shall we? Eventually, they were led to another chamber where 7 different alien officials sat at elevated desks. What followed was an exhaustive series of questions about every aspect of human physiology, technology, and history. When they learned that humans had developed spaceflight independently, there was a noticeable stir among the officials. Impossible, said one official, a bulbous being with tendrils where a human would have a face. No species achieves interstellar capacity without guidance from the elders. We haven't achieved true interstellar travel yet, Juwu explained. Our ship was exploring our own solar system when we encountered the wormhole. This led to another hour of deliberations among the officials in languages the humans couldn't understand. Finally, they were taken to meet with what appeared to be a higher authority. The room they entered was decorated with elaborate ceremonial objects and tapestries depicting star maps. A being sat on an elevated platform, surrounded by attendants. This alien was similar to the Viridians, but had skin that shifted colors like an Earth chameleon. Welcome, it said through a translator. I am Sub-Regent Valerian of the Galactic Concordat. Your unexpected arrival creates much paperwork. What followed was another 2 hours of ceremonial greetings, during which each alien in the room had to formally acknowledge the humans in order of their social rank. By the time they reached the 20th formal introduction, even the patient Juwu was struggling to maintain her diplomatic composure. With all due respect, she finally interrupted, we appreciate your welcome, but perhaps we could expedite these proceedings. My crew and I have many questions about where we are and how we might return home. The entire room fell silent. One does not expedite the greeting of new species, Sub-Regent Valerian said, skin flushing a deep purple. It has been performed exactly this way for 12,000 cycles. Chunky, who had been quietly examining the room's technology, stepped forward. Maybe this will help speed things along. He connected his tablet to what appeared to be a data terminal. I noticed your systems seem to be processing information rather slowly. I've taken the liberty of optimizing your translation matrix. Before anyone could object, the alien screens throughout the room flickered and then brightened. The quality of the translated speech immediately improved. What did you do? Demanded an official. Just a simple algorithm adjustment, Hyunki said with a casual shrug. Your quantum processors are excellent, but your software architecture is, well, inefficient. The sub-regent leaned forward, colors swirling across its skin. You modified our sacred systems. Without permission. I improved them. Hyunki corrected. Look, your processing speed has increased by 300%. That's 3 hours of ceremonial greetings saved right there. The aliens exchanged glances. One of them checked a device and made a surprised clicking sound. Impossible, the sub-regent whispered, but the evidence was clear on every screen in the room. Ju stepped forward. The audacity may be small, but Earth has developed our technology to be efficient and practical. We value results over ceremony. She smiled. Now, perhaps we could discuss how our species might learn from each other and how we might find our way home. The sub-regent stared at the humans for a long moment, then made a gesture that caused. Perhaps, it said finally, there is much to discuss indeed. The Concordat has not encountered a species like yours in a very long time. As the meeting continued with substantially less ceremony, Zhu couldn't help but notice the mixture of concern and curiosity in the alien administrator's constantly shifting colors. Humans had made their first impression on the galactic stage, and it clearly wasn't what anyone had expected. The Grand Hall of Technological Exchange on Outpost Zenith 7 buzzed with activity as various alien species moved between elaborate display stations. The humans from the HSV Audacity stood in a cluster, observing the spectacle with undisguised curiosity. 3 days had passed since their accidental arrival in Concordat space, and the initial diplomatic tensions had given way to a cautious cultural exchange. "These are your guides," announced Sub-Regent Valerian, gesturing to 5 aliens of different species who approached with formal bows. "They will help you understand our great galactic concordat while we learn about your unexpected development." Captain Ju Park nodded politely. "We appreciate the hospitality." The tallest guide stepped forward. He resembled a humanoid with silvery skin and elongated limbs. "I am scholarly mentor Eliax of the Lumidian Collective," he said through his translator. "I specialize in developmental history of emerging species." After introductions were complete, the guides led the humans through the vast hall. Engineer Minji Kim trailed her fingers over a display showing the evolution of Concordat computing systems. "Is this timeline accurate?" she asked, pointing to a date marker. "It took 300 years to develop quantum networking after basic quantum computing." Eliax nodded proudly. "Yes, the Concordat believes in careful, measured progress. Each technology must be thoroughly understood before advancing to the next stage. The elders guide all species along the proper development path." Minje exchanged glances with Hyunki Lee. "On Earth, it took us less than 50 years. The guide's translator made a strange crackling sound, which they later realized was an expression of disbelief. "Impossible. No species could safely develop that quickly." Hyunki pulled out his personal tablet and projected a holographic display showing Earth's technological timeline. "Actually, once we understood the basic principles of quantum entanglement, the rest followed pretty naturally." One discovery led to another. A small crowd of alien scientists gathered around, murmuring in their various languages as they studied the human timeline. "But who guided you?" asked a squat, orange-skinned alien with 4 eyes. "Which elder species provided the development framework?" "No one," Ju said simply. "Humans developed independently." This caused such a commotion that a senior official had to come restore order. The humans were quickly escorted to a more private chamber, where Eliax and the other guides seemed both disturbed and fascinated. "You must understand," Eliax explained, his silver skin pulsing with light patterns that suggested agitation. "For 20,000 years, the Concordat has maintained technological order. New species are discovered, evaluated, and guided along predetermined development paths. It preserves harmony and control," Minji observed quietly. Eliax ignored this comment. "We will now show you our most advanced technologies so you can appreciate the Concordat's achievements." The guides led them to a restricted section where security personnel scanned them before entry. Inside was a gleaming laboratory with various technologies on display. "This," announced Eliax proudly, "is the pinnacle of Concordat achievement, our 6th-generation full drive." The device was beautiful, a crystalline sphere surrounded by intricate metal bands that rotated slowly in opposing directions. Soft blue light pulsed from its core. "It can transport our largest vessels across 3 sectors in just 14 standard cycles," another guide added. "No faster transportation exists." Instead of looking impressed, Minje and Hyunki exchanged puzzled glances. "May I?" Minje asked, gesturing toward the device. After receiving permission, she walked slowly around it, studying its construction. "The field generator is using resonance principles, isn't it? But why are you containing the cascade effect rather than amplifying it?" The alien scientists stared at her. "Amplifying a quantum cascade would create dangerous instability." "You misunderstand," said the crystalline being. "This is not a request between equals. The Concordat must assess whether human development represents a threat to galactic stability." Hyunki stepped forward. "If you're worried about humans disrupting your carefully controlled system, I'd say that's already happening. Your younger staff members have been asking us questions nonstop. They're fascinated by our approach to problem solving." "Which is precisely the concern," muttered a counselor. As the meeting dissolved into heated debate among the council members, Juwu gathered her crew close. "I think we've unintentionally sparked something here," she said quietly. Minje nodded. "They're terrified of change. Look at them. They've built an entire civilization around controlling the pace of progress. And then we show up," Jawan added, "having broken all their rules without even knowing they existed." Juwu watched the council's agitation with growing concern. "Something tells me our accidental visit is about to become much more complicated." Above them, projected on a massive display, human technological timelines were being compared to Concordat standards. The difference was striking. What had taken humans decades had taken the Concordat centuries, and in that simple comparison lay a challenge to everything the Galactic Empire believed about progress, control, and their place in the universe. The journey to Zenith Prime took 3 days aboard the Concordat diplomatic vessel Eternal Harmony. Captain Juwu Park and her crew marveled at the massive ship. It was nearly a kilometer long, adorned with ornate decorations that seemed more artistic than functional. "It's beautiful," Communications Officer Doyan Kang remarked as they walked down a long corridor lined with what appeared to be historical tapestries. "But don't you think it's a bit excessive for a transport ship?" Their guide, a tall Lumidian named Eliax, turned his silvery head. "The Eternal Harmony is not merely a transport. It is a Class 7 ceremonial vessel, commissioned by the High Regent 4,000 cycles ago to honor the Treaty of 9 Systems." 4,000 cycles? Do-Yun asked. "And you're still using it for regular diplomatic missions?" Eliax's translator conveyed his confusion. "Of course. Why would we replace something that still serves its purpose?" Hyunki Lee whispered to Minje. "Earth would have redesigned it 40 times by now." The Zenith Prime capital city was even more impressive than the ship. Buildings of impossible heights and shapes stretched toward 3 moons visible in the daylight sky. Flying vehicles moved in perfect, orderly patterns between structures. The humans were escorted to their quarters in the Diplomatic Exchange Tower, a building reserved for visiting dignitaries. After settling in, they were invited to a formal welcome dinner. "Remember the protocols we taught you," Eliax instructed seriously. "The dinner will follow the 12-tier ceremonial exchange format. Each tier has specific behaviors and responses required." Do-Yun studied the data pad she'd been given. "This says the dinner will last for 6 hours. Is that normal?" "It's an abbreviated format, out of consideration for your species' limited digestive cycle," Eliax explained. "A full ceremonial exchange would span 14 hours. The dining hall was spectacular, a vast space with a transparent ceiling revealing the night sky. Representatives from 30 different species were already seated according to an elaborate arrangement that apparently reflected their status in the Concordat hierarchy. The humans were seated at a middle tier, which Eliax explained was unusual for a newly discovered species, a special accommodation given their unique circumstances. As servers began bringing elaborate dishes, Do-Yun tried to follow the protocols she'd studied. She waited exactly 3 beats before lifting her drinking vessel, nodded to the diplomat on her left before taking a sip, and placed it down precisely 2 finger widths from her plate. "You did that wrong," whispered a small furry being seated nearby. "The ritual of first refreshment requires the vessel to be placed 3 widths away during the second course." "Oh, sorry," Do-Yun apologized, adjusting her cup. Throughout the meal, similar corrections came from all directions as the humans struggled with the intricate rules. By the 4th course, Do-Yun had given up trying to remember everything. When a server presented an unusual blue fruit, protocol dictated that she should accept it with her left hand while making a specific gesture with her right. Instead, she simply smiled and said, "Thank you, this looks delicious." A shocked silence fell over her section of the table. "Did I do something wrong?" A delegate with crystalline skin leaned forward. "You expressed gratitude to a food presenter. That is not their role in the ceremony." Do-Yun looked at the server, who stood frozen in place. "Well, they're doing work for me. Where I come from, We thank people for their service." This comment spread quickly through the hall, causing murmurs of conversation that disrupted the carefully choreographed event. Some older delegates looked offended, but Do-yeon noticed several younger aliens watching her with curious interest. After the dinner finally concluded, a group of younger delegates approached the humans. "Your directness is refreshing," said one with luminescent tendrils. "I am Velian, junior diplomatic attaché. Many of us are curious about human social structures." Soon, the humans were surrounded by younger aliens eager to learn about Earth. The formal setting dissolved into genuinely curious conversation. "You mean your leaders serve limited terms, voluntarily?" asked Velian, seeming shocked when Ju explained democratic elections. "And anyone can speak to anyone regardless of status?" asked another young delegate. "Of course," said Do-yeon. "Social hierarchy exists, but it's flexible. Ideas matter more than position." The next day, the humans were taken to the Cultural Heritage Repository, a vast museum showcasing the art, music, and literature of Concordat species. Dr. Yoonji Baek was fascinated by the medical exhibits, while others explored different sections. When they gathered for lunch, they found they had acquired followers, younger members of various species who seemed fascinated by human informality. "It seems you've started a small cultural rebellion," Minji observed to Captain Park as they watched Do-yeon chatting animatedly with a group of junior diplomats. "They're like teenagers pushing against their parents' rules," Ju replied. "I'm starting to wonder if the Concordat's rigid structure has been building pressure for change." That evening, they were invited to a cultural showcase where species performed traditional art forms. When asked if humans would contribute, Do-yeon suggested sharing music. She connected her personal device to the sound system and selected a playlist of Earth's classical and contemporary pieces. The response was immediate. Some older aliens covered their hearing organs at the unexpected rhythms and harmonies, while younger ones moved closer, clearly intrigued. A bold young Viridian approached afterward. "Your music lacks proper structure. The emotional patterns are chaotic. But I find it stimulating. Could I have more?" By the end of the week, human music, art, and stories were being secretly shared among younger Concordat members. What had begun as a formal cultural exchange had evolved into something more profound, a challenge to the rigid structures that had governed Concordat life for millennia. "We've only been here a short time," Ja Won-choi observed during a private crew meeting. "But I think we're witnessing the beginning of a cultural shift, or a cultural crisis," Captain Park replied, looking out the window at the perfectly ordered city. "And I'm not sure the Concordat leadership is going to appreciate Earth's unintended influence." Outside their quarters, young aliens gathered, hoping to learn more about the humans who spoke freely, thanked servers, and shared music that broke all the rules. The gleaming spires of the Grand Council chamber rose like crystal fingers reaching for the 3 moons of Zenith Prime. Inside, representatives from over 200 species filled the tiered seating that encircled a central platform. The humans from HSV Audacity had been summoned, but were made to wait outside while the council debated. Captain Ju Park paced the antechamber, her crew watching with varying degrees of concern. "They've been in there for 3 hours," Security Officer Ja Won-choi noted, checking his wrist device. "That can't be good." Their guide Eliax stood nearby, his silvery skin dimmed with anxiety. "A High Council rarely convenes an emergency session. Your presence has caused complications." Suddenly, the massive doors swung open. A Viridian. The chamber fell silent as the humans walked to the central platform. Above them, holographic displays showed data about Earth, human history, and their interactions since arriving in Concordat space. A beam made of what appeared to be folded light rose from the highest tier. Grand Arbiter Tholux, as they would later learn, was one of the oldest living members of the Concordat's founding species. "Humans of Earth," the translator rendered in their earpieces. "Your unexpected arrival presents the Concordat with a situation not encountered in 12,000 cycles." Captain Park stepped forward. We appreciate your hospitality while we work to return home. That is precisely the matter under discussion, Felix continued. There are those who believe you should not be permitted to return at all. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Ju kept her expression neutral despite her alarm. May I ask why? She asked calmly. A different council member, corpulent with multiple eyes, responded. Your species represents a developmental anomaly. You have advanced too quickly, without guidance. Your technological path is unpredictable. Your social structures chaotic. Elder Mox speaks truth, added another counselor. Thousands of species have joined the Concordat following the proper path. Your kind skipped essential developmental stages. This creates dangerous instability. Jawan Choi stepped forward, ignoring protocol. With respect, we have the right to develop as we choose. Your presence is already causing disruption, Elder Mox countered. Reports indicate younger members of 17 species have begun questioning established hierarchies after exposure to human ideas. Captain Park noticed a divide forming in the chamber. Older representatives nodded in agreement with Elder Mox, while younger members shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps change isn't always bad, she suggested carefully. The Concordat has maintained peace for 20,000 years through order and structure, Felix stated. Wild innovation leads to weapons, war, and collapse. We have historical records of civilizations that destroyed themselves through unchecked progress. As the debate continued, Hyunki Lee leaned close to Juwoo. Captain, my tablet is picking up unusual data traffic. Something's happening outside the chamber. Before she could respond, the grand doors burst open. A group of younger aliens entered, led by Velian, the junior diplomat who had befriended Doyun. The Council of Elders does not speak for all, Velian announced. Many of us wish to learn from humans, not fear them. This caused an uproar. Guards moved toward the intruders, but stopped when several council members from middle tiers stood in support. This is unprecedented, Elder Mox declared. Amid the chaos, Jawan's security training kicked in. He noticed subtle movements around the chamber, guards repositioning, communication devices being activated. Something wasn't right. Captain, he whispered, we need to leave. Now. As they were escorted from the chamber, Velian fell into step beside them. You must come with me. There are things you should know. Against Eliax's protests, they followed Velian through a series of less ornate corridors until they reached a small plain room far from the council chambers. Inside waited representatives from species they hadn't seen before, plainer, less adorned than the elegant Concordat officials they'd met. These are members of the Free Systems movement, Velian explained. Species who have been disadvantaged. A reptilian being stepped forward. I am Terrace, from the mining world Keldor. Your arrival has created an opportunity we've waited generations for. What opportunity? Ju asked cautiously. To expose the truth about the Concordat's so-called harmony, Terrace replied. While the elder species enjoy luxury and long lives, newer members provide resources and labor under harsh conditions. Holographic displays activated, showing images that shock the humans, mining operations with terrible conditions, worlds stripped of resources, species living in poverty. The Concordat presents itself as a benevolent guide, Velian explained, but in reality, it's an empire. The proper path of development ensures new species remain dependent on elder technology and guidance. Minja Kim studied the mining operation displays. These extraction methods are incredibly inefficient. They're using techniques we abandoned centuries ago. By design, Terrace hissed, efficient methods would mean fewer workers and less control. Jawan Choi examined the security footage. This is why the Council is so concerned about us. We represent an alternative path. Precisely, Velian confirmed. Your species achieved in centuries what the Elders claim requires millennia of guidance. If other worlds learn this truth, they'd question the entire system, Captain Park finished. As they talked, Hyunki worked on his tablet. Captain, I've been analyzing Concordat data network since we arrived. There's something you should see. He projected a complex diagram showing resource flows between worlds. 90% of raw materials flow from newer member worlds to the elder species. Technology flows the opposite direction, but it's carefully controlled, outdated systems sold as cutting edge. It's economic colonialism on a galactic scale, Jawan observed. Captain Park paced the small room, considering the implications. So the Concordat keeps newer species dependent on them for technology, while extracting their resources. For thousands of years, Terrace confirmed. But your arrival changes everything. You represent proof that the proper path is a lie, that species can develop independently and succeed. What exactly do you want from us? Ju asked directly. Velian and Terrace exchanged glances. Help us overthrow the elders, Terrace said. With human technology and our numbers, we could free countless worlds. Or start a galactic civil war, Jawan countered. Before they could discuss further, Eliax burst into the room, his silver skin pulsing with alarm patterns. You must return immediately. The council has voted. The wormhole that brought you here will be collapsed. You will be guests of the Concordat. Permanently. The humans exchanged alarmed glances. What had begun as an accidental discovery was rapidly becoming a crisis that could reshape an entire civilization. And they were caught in the middle. Captain Ju Park stood before her assembled crew in their temporary quarters. Outside, the 3 moons of Zenith Prime cast an eerie glow through the windows. The news that the Concordat planned to collapse the wormhole, their only way home, had created a somber mood. We need options, Ju said firmly. I refuse to accept that we're stuck here forever. Hyunkili raised his hand. I may have something, Captain. While they've been showing us their technology, I've been mapping their communication networks. There's a transmission array on the North Tower that could potentially reach Earth. Even across that distance, Minja Kim asked skeptically. With modifications, their basic technology is sound, just inefficiently used. He tapped his tablet. If we can access the array for just 10 minutes, I can send our coordinates and a message back home. Ja Wen Choi frowned. They're watching us closely. We'd need a distraction. Do-Hyun Kang smiled slightly. I think I can help with that. Our young friends in the Free Systems movement. Captain Park nodded. Good, but we also need to address the larger issue. The Concordat has presented us with 2 bad choices: become permanent guests or help spark a rebellion that could lead to countless deaths. What if there's a third option? Dr. Yunji Baek suggested quietly. She had been the least vocal of the crew during their time in the Concordat. Something neither side expects. Everyone turned to her. I've been talking with medical practitioners from various worlds. Many are frustrated by the controlled release of treatments. Diseases that could be cured continue to claim lives because the elders determine when cures are appropriate for each species. She looked up. What if we offered knowledge freely, without taking sides? Ju considered this. A third path. Not revolution, not submission, but open exchange. The next morning, as planned, Do-Hyun organized a cultural demonstration that attracted hundreds of younger Concordat members to the central plaza. They played Earth music and demonstrated human dances, creating enough commotion that security was diverted from the communication towers. Meanwhile, Hyunki and Minjae slipped away to the North Tower. With Velian's help, they gained access to the transmission array. We'll only have a few minutes, Velian warned, nervously watching the door. Hyunki worked quickly, fingers flying over his tablet as he interfaced with the alien technology. Their encoding is actually elegant, just overcomplicated. If I bypass these ceremonial protocols, the array hummed to life, its energy output doubling as Hyunki's modifications took effect. Message loaded, he announced, sending Earth's coordinates, our situation, and a request for assistance. The transmission fired into space, bypassing the normal Concordat communication channels. Whether it would reach Earth was uncertain, but it was their best hope. Now for part 2, Minja said as they hurried back to join the others. By mid-afternoon, Captain Park had requested, and surprisingly been granted, an audience with the Grand Council. The political turmoil their presence had caused made the elders eager to resolve the human problem quickly. The council chamber was packed, with representatives from more worlds than their previous meeting. Word had spread about the humans' potential fate. Grand Orator Tholux opened the session. Human Captain Park, you have been informed of the council's decision. This audience is merely a formality, I wish to present an alternative. Juwu interrupted, causing gasps throughout the chamber. Interrupting the Grand Orator was simply not done. There is no alternative, Elder Mox stated firmly. The wormhole must be collapsed to prevent contamination of your world with advanced knowledge, and you must remain here under supervision. Or we could help the free systems revolt, Juwu said calmly. They've already approached us. This caused an uproar. Security forces moved closer to the central platform where she stood. But we've chosen neither option, she continued when the noise subsided. Instead, we propose the human alternative. She nodded to Hyunki, who activated a holographic display showing Earth. My engineer has already transmitted our coordinates home. More human ships will come. It's only a matter of time. You cannot isolate us forever. Elder Mox rose in anger. This is a violation of. Please, Juwu raised her hand. Hear me out. We don't want conflict. We don't want to overthrow your system. But we won't be prisoners either. She walked in a slow circle, making eye contact with representatives. The human alternative is simple. Open exchange. Earth will establish diplomatic relations with any world that wishes it. Elder, free system, or independent. We will share knowledge freely, without conditions except mutual respect. This undermines the entire foundation of the proper path. Tholux protested. Perhaps the path needs updating, Juwu suggested. 20,000 years is a long time to follow the same road without checking if better routes have appeared. She gestured to her crew. In the brief time we've been here, my medical officer has already shared treatments for diseases your people have suffered from for generations. My engineers have shown your technicians ways to improve efficiency without complex new systems. All we asked in return was knowledge about your cultures and history. Murmurs spread through the chamber as representatives discussed among themselves. The middle tiers seemed particularly engaged. The Concordat claims to value harmony, Juwu continued. But true harmony doesn't come from control. It comes from balance. Different voices, different approaches, working together. A representative from a middle tier stood. The humans speak wisdom. My world has waited 300 cycles for medical technology that Dr. Bake tells me Earth developed 500 years ago. Why must we wait when cures exist? Others began to stand, not in rebellion, but in thoughtful questioning. Juwu pressed her advantage. We don't ask you to abandon your traditions or hierarchy. We simply offer an alternative path alongside yours. Let worlds choose whether to follow the proper path or explore new directions. The chamber erupted in discussion. Elder Mox conferred urgently with Tholux and other senior members. Finally, Tholux raised a glowing appendage for silence. What you propose threatens 20,000 years of stability, the Grand Arbiter said, or offers 20,000 more years of growth, Juwu countered. After hours of debate, a compromise emerged. The wormhole would remain open, but with monitoring stations. Earth vessels would be permitted entry under specific protocols. Knowledge exchange would be permitted, but with oversight to prevent destabilizing technologies from spreading too rapidly. Not perfect, Jawan commented as they prepared to depart for the wormhole and home, but a start. Revolutions aren't always fought with weapons, Captain Park replied, watching as dozens of young Concordat members came to bid them farewell. Many carried data devices containing human knowledge, music, and ideas. Sometimes all it takes is showing people there's another way. As the HSV Audacity departed Zenith Prime, they left behind something more disruptive than any weapon, possibility. And as they approached the shimmering wormhole that would take them home, they knew they would return. Earth had found its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or rebels, but as alternatives to an order